friends, welcome back to my channel. We like to talk about historic clothing, disability, and a bunch of other random stuff. If you're new here, I'm happy to see you, and I invite you all to subscribe to my channel and hit the little bell so that YouTube will let you know when I upload. In the description box below, you'll find links to all of my social spots, including Ko-fi, where you could make a one-time donation to help me keep making these videos. Today's video is a big one. I'm going to be sharing some of the process of making my 1860s day bodice. Those of you who have been around before know that I'm in the process of making an 1860s transformation gown. This just means that it's one skirt with two bodices. A day bodice and an evening bodice. A day bodice is usually worn during the day, and it usually features long sleeves and a higher neckline. An evening bodice was worn for evening dinners and dances. Because skirts of this period took so much fabric, it was really common practice to make two bodices to go with one skirt to maximize your fabric when fabric was really the most expensive part of your project. For the day bodice, I'm going to start with a pattern out of Patterns of Fashion 2. It's actually the first dress in the book. Now I want to be clear. This video is not a tutorial. This bodice was a huge step outside of my comfort zone, and it was definitely not something that I found easy or intuitive. But I really wanted to grow as a creator in both my sewing and in video making. In the process of making mistakes and trying to figure out what to do next, I had to really work out how to motivate myself and how to solve these problems. So this video is to share with you my 5 things to do when everything goes wrong. Number 1, go back to your source material or whatever your actual inspiration was. I started this project by looking at the Victorian dressmaker, which you will be familiar with if you've watched a few other videos that I have made about this gown. There is a playlist in the card above. I did try one of the patterns from the Victorian dressmaker, and I sized it up to my size, and essentially the back fit well, and I couldn't even get the front closed. I'd only made this from mock-up material, and it didn't really go very far, but I'm bringing it up just to tell you because A, it gets mentioned again later, and B, because the point of this video is sticking with a project even when it gets hard. So I'm determined to mention all the missteps I made because there were a lot of them. Anyway, my point here is that when things don't feel right, like you aren't hitting the right highlights or it doesn't give you the right feel, go back to the inspiration for the project. If it's a cosplay, go back to the show or the comic or the book. For historical garments like mine, go back to photos and portraits and fashion plates. For a modern garment or painting or anything else, well, what inspired you? If you're really stuck, make a Pinterest board. Or a Google Images collection, or make an old school cutout pictures mood board or color board. Basically, head back to the beginning. After looking at countless more extant dresses and fashion plates, I realized that to give my dress a true mid-Victorian flair, I needed a dropped shoulder. And that was where Patterns of Fashion came in, because one of the extant garments I'd been looking at was, coincidentally, the one in the book. It was about this point that I realized that almost all the garments in the books are in museums, which makes sense since that's where Janet Arnold found them in the first place. So if you have a garment you're interested in, you can usually find it photographed in a museum collection. Anyway, I fell in love with this one, with the mock jacket look and all the ribbon trim. So I traced it all out again and made another mock-up. it did not fit. This was not a huge surprise. So I added some width, then I made another mock-up. This one I could close, but it had many weird wrinkles in a variety of places. So I really at this point did my best to add and subtract fabric to make it fit, and this is where we arrive at mistake number 1. The fabric that I was using for my mock-up had some stretch in it. The fabric I made my bodice out of did not. So the way I pinned the darts and such didn't end up working in the finished product. Additionally, I didn't compare my measurements to the measurements of the garments, despite the fact that I had taken those measurements. I feel like I owe Luca Costigliogo an apology for this. Number 2, take a break or work on something else. Banging your head up against the wall of endless frustration accomplishes nothing. For me, 2 badly fitting mock-ups in a row had me ready to scream. So I took a break and made the skirt. With luck, you've already seen the video on that. The construction was fairly straightforward, even if the video had me laying in a pit of despair, but that's another video. A break can consist of anything. A few days of garbage TV, the completion of another project or 2, anything that takes your mind off something that makes you feel that horrible, gut-sinking feeling of failing. When you are too deep into something, it's very hard to be able to look at it and problem solve. For me, it always just seems like the errors are screaming at me, and I can't see any of the things I did right. Coming back to my bodice, I was able to look at it again with a more objective eye. I added some darts and made a few other adjustments, like taking up the shoulder seams, which made everything fit a little bit better. It was at this point I decided to start cutting my real fabric. I started with the lining for 2 reasons. The first was it was less scary being a nice cotton, but not irreplaceable. The second was that I pinned it on as a final mock-up. It seemed to fit okay, so I basted the linings onto the fabric and did my best to pattern match it. Then I cut out the pieces and basted them together. The fit was not amazing. Honestly, at this point it was really disheartening. So then I took another break while I continued making the skirt. As I said in my intro to that video, I basically wasn't speaking to the bodice at this point because I was having all kinds of feelings about it. Number 3, ask a friend for help and encouragement. So I asked my friend to help me. Reaching out to other creators is so important. People have been coming together in groups to make things for all of history. It's literally an important part of being a human. And I know that for many people, myself included, we are all feeling far more isolated than perhaps we're used to. If it's possible to reach out in person, it's probably a good idea right now. However, whatever flavor of creativity you enjoy, there is also an online community of people that is probably also interested in it. There are 1,000,001 YouTube channels and Facebook groups and people to follow and chat with on other apps like Twitter and Instagram. If you have a community that you love, feel free to give them a shout out in the comments, because everyone deserves social contact, and it can be very intimidating to walk up to a new group. I have several online groups that I participate in, as well as sharing the house with a good friend who also sews. So I took my bodice out to her in the kitchen to see what she thought. She's a total perfectionist, so the look on her face was hilarious, and I only regret that I did not document it. Anyway, my concern was the armpit pooching, which I really wanted to fix before adding the sleeves. Her concern was the fact that the darts were wholly uneven. This was a valid point, though I didn't really see it at the time. So with all kinds of pins stuck in my real fabric and the idea in my head that I had a plan, I went back to work. Number 4, change and adapt. Perfection is a myth. The trouble was, with the changes I had made to the bodice fit, it meant that it didn't much look like the pattern from the book anymore. But I was not deterred. Okay, so I'm still desperately trying to fix the fit on the bodice. So things I have figured out recently is this right here. My shoulders are sloped more here, so picked that up and out, which got rid of a whole like random extra dart I had stuck in here, which apparently I didn't need. So hooray for that. The problem I'm having is, what the hell is this? Trying to curve around up here right now, this is the problem. This is not the shape of me. But if I cut it to curve, how do I make it button? Because, yeah. Current thought is adding a placket on this side, which gives me more room to play with. And more reinforcement, because I don't want it to all fall apart on me. But yeah, I think I'm going to go look in the Victorian dressmaker, because I think her bodice from this era is curved at the front and not straight up and down. I suspect this is a Sarah is short problem, and this is meant to be worn with some sort of like chemisy neck thing at the top. Chemisette, perhaps, is the word I'm looking for. Anyway, I want to finish this, then I can go look at my goddamn sleeves, which are also way too big to fit in the holes right now, so hooray. Okay, so order of operation number 1, look in the Victorian dressmaker and figure out these buttons. 2, sew on a placket. 3, go to bed and ignore sleeves until sometime next week. I made the changes that I had discussed with my friend, tried it on some more, always over the correct undergarments. I pinned it shut, I adjusted the pins, I folded things over. It fit, somewhat. The neck was higher than I was expecting, and the waist was a bit shorter than I would have liked. But I didn't want to give up. So I decided to embrace these faults and make them features. So I put together the sleeves and put them on the bodice. And then, because I have less patience than the average 4-year-old, I jumped ahead to trimming the sleeves. This was a challenge. I love the look of the ruffled ribbon trim. This is the same polyester grosgrain ribbon I used on the skirt. But going around the corners confounded me. I tried mitering like you would do in a binding. The tricky part was that because I was using the trim as a way to finish the sleeve cuffs, I sewed it on upside down. Then, when I flipped everything around the way it ought to be, the corners were reversed. The inside corners became outside corners, and the outside corners became inside corners. I could have taken the trim off and started over. I really could have. But I didn't. And here's why. Every time you have to start something over, you'll lose momentum. And yes, we all want a degree of accuracy in our work, and without it, the world tilts off its axis, and we all end up in a parallel dimension. However, there is a point in everything where good enough is good enough. Only you can decide where that point is, however. Well, and to a certain degree, your fabric, because really, you can only pick something apart so many times before the fabric starts to degrade. For me, it was deciding to pick off the corners of the sleeve trim and not the rest. I fudged it well enough, and not even my notably eagle-eyed housemate has had anything to say about it. Then I decided to bind off the bottom because that would help the uneven issue and add a little length, even though I had to trim it a little to make it even. Number 5, start over, even when it's scary. If you follow me on Instagram, and if you don't, you should, then you may remember this post. I tried really, really hard to make this bodice fit good enough, but it just didn't, no matter what I did. So I did one of the scariest things I have ever done. I started over. Hey guys, so today I've come to the very, very sad conclusion that I need to start my day bodice over. I just had it on, it should be fit, and I should just put trim on it at this point. I still can't get it to do up the front in any kind of sensible way, so starting over it is. I knew this was going to be a problem. I've been ignoring the issues since the beginning. I did make a mock-up, I then pretty much ignored it though, so it's all a learning process, and I'm frustrated. I don't want to lie to you. I'm really, really frustrated, and I'm upset with myself. This is supposed to be my entry in the Foundations Revealed contest, and now I don't know if I'm going to get it done in time. So yeah, that's pretty much where I am. I'm going to stay in my Victorian undies so that I can keep fitting this sucker, because, yeah. Anyway, wish me luck. Hey guys, so I'm starting to start over. I'm hoping I'll be able to rescue the sleeves off of this so I don't have to worry about wasting more fabric. Because I am worried about wasting more fabric, because I want to see if I can still get an evening bodice out of this, because I do. That's very specific, I can tell, but that is the goal. So I'm going to unpick my other arm here and go back and check my pattern and see if I can figure out what the hell's going on. So I have eaten crow, turned around, and remade a mock-up of my bodice. This already fits a bit better because I didn't do the... Hang on, you guys are too close. Don't steal your hop, Sarah. Because I didn't do the darts until I was wearing it, so I just did the darts on my body the way you might do with a dressmaker's dummy, which I don't know, so I couldn't do that. So I've literally been wearing my corset for the last, like, 4 hours. Fun. So yeah, you can see all my marks here. Changes. I had my incredibly neurotic housemate look me over to make sure everything was mostly balanced. So now we recut lining and recut the fabric. Okay, first fitting happened. Everything's just basted together for right now, but it does fit very well. It fits a lot better than the old one, which is, you know, awesome. Went to show my housemate, and she pointed out, let me see if I can make you guys see it. Hang on. So this is the front. These are the bust darts, and we identified 2 little problems. One, that they're not the same distance, which is very obvious down the front. Excuse me. And that they go too high up onto the bust so that the bust is pulling. So I have managed, while still wearing it, to make tiny little purple marks, showing me where they need to be dropped to. And like I said, this is all just basted, so I can just pull it out again. And this side, I just need to pick out the tops. This time, I was able to add in some of the corrections I had learned along the way. I shortened the distance from bust point to shoulder. I cut out a wedge for my dowager's hump. No, it's not elegant, but I can pretend to live my very best Dowager Duchess life if I want to. Which brought the neckline back in at the back. I asked for fit help from my housemate and got the darts dropped a little and evened on each side. The feeling of starting over like this is scary. It's frustrating. It's disheartening. But sometimes it's worth it. It really is. Because when you get it right, you can practically feel it in the air and you start to gather momentum. I was amazed every time I tried it on, and it fit again, still. And from there, things came together quite quickly. I was able to put on the trim with a little ingenuity because the lack of dress form was highly apparent, and cover a few buttons and stitch the buttonholes. And then, look! I did it! With the quick additions of some undersleeves, I was able to quickly hand sew out of white cotton. I have a whole outfit, and it is beautiful. I love it so much. I love how it moves. I love the pocket, and I'm so proud of myself. Thanks for joining me, friends. Don't forget to subscribe, and I hope I see you again real soon. Bye-bye.